Shall we begin? Let's begin now. Let's begin now.
Greetings, and welcome to the Modern Alchemist channel. I'm Aubrey Forrest, the Modern Alchemist, and this is Concept Corner, where I take a couple minutes and break down some core concepts of alchemy and the esoteric in what I would hope is perhaps its simplest form. Today's discussion is going to lead off of the previous Concept Corner of Do As Thou Wilt. And today what we're going to do is discuss the esoteric in terms of doing it as something that you want to do. And specifically, and why students fail. Why people fail when they try to do the esoteric, whatever it is they think it is. Okay? So if you haven't heard the previous podcast, give that one a listen. It'll make a lot of this make more sense. If you have, sweet. Let's begin. All right. With regard to this concept, this is something that I'm drawing from immediate practical experience with my own students. Recently, I have started accepting some private students globally. If you are interested yourself, sincere applicants, please write me and we can commence the process based on the nature of your letter. Anyway, so with this last teaching cycle, I had this interesting division take place where I had essentially the same material, the same kind of discussions that were open-ended, student focus centered, and I saw that some succeeded and others did not. And I had to really give myself some serious inward looking and say, okay, what was going on? What happened here? What is it that I'm observing? Was it the relationship, or was it the focus? And eventually it came down to this. Ultimately, I've discovered over time, and this is where this discussion parallels directly with the previous one about do as thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, that the students who actually approach this material with a hunger, they lusted, as Crowley might say, after this material. They lusted after this knowledge. It was everything that they wanted to learn. Those students would come to me after a series of assignments and stuff, say, I need more, you're not giving me enough, more. On the other hand, if a student approached me and it was because of some kind of need that they had developed in their mind, that they felt this was a component of some of their research, or this was a component of understanding the ecclesiastical side of all of this, or those of you who were seeking to either verify or annul certain values. But all of this was preceded by a need that seemed to be preceded by a sense of emptiness or a vacuum that had been identified. And so those students then would approach this material in me, and as time would progress, you would see procrastination develop. And I'm not an opponent of procrastination. I'm a bit more of the classical Greek mindset there, where in many ways procrastination can be the method by which the mind readies itself to commence a task. And then, as everything else in nature, it's all this accumulation, and then boom, this big outpouring, and then you're done. And so an outpouring doesn't necessarily need to have the steadiness of a stream. It can have the eruptive force of a volcano of creativity. and a cataclysmic lightning strike of understanding. Anyway, so the idea then is that I'm not going to coach you against procrastinating. We're all adults here, but over time that develops into a mountain of material because I just keep assigning more stuff. And over time, it's like, well, there's not enough hours in the day for me to do any of this, and it's because when you began, you never really wanted this, and you didn't know that, and that's where that other concept is that I mentioned in the previous episode is that sometimes on your journey, if you're aware enough, as you're taking your footsteps, you'll be like, whoa, this is just not what I thought it was going to be. And it's too much or whatever, and I'm done. And I applaud that kind of self-awareness, because the truth is this stuff is absolutely not for everyone. And here's why. and I hope that doesn't bother those of you out there hearing that, but it's just not. And it's not because it's some stupid, super special club, or relegated to whatever. It has nothing to do with that. It's not something you need. Never has any alchemist ever espoused alchemy as something that anyone needs. You can live your whole life and never hear the word of alchemy or the elements or astrology or any of that and be just fine. Clearly, because a lot of people do just fine. This isn't religion. You're not going to be a bad person or a good person and there's no punishment. This alchemy is a tool. It's a means through which one is enabled or endowed with the tools necessary, the ideas, the constructs necessary to articulate what it is that they are experiencing or what they are seeing around them or within themselves, and then being able to conduct what I consider the second most important activity that we do as human beings, and that is to exchange information, which also in a technical form is the first most important activity, which is procreation, that we take from ourselves and we create a new person to continue on with the rest of us, right? Without that, there would be no point of talking about anything. So clearly procreation is big on the list, and it's number one, and we're going to talk about sex in a future concept corner. But for now, let's just realize that that's clearly the most important thing we do. And then the next most important thing is to exchange information between ourselves, which technically on a genetic level, that's what we do in number one. So on the whole then, the idea of alchemy is to permit one the facility whereby they are capable of exchanging information in a meaningful way that which can alter reality. Which can alter the reality of another person, alter your reality, and in ways which exceed mere change. It is transmutation. And that's the focus. That's the end goal of alchemy is to recognize that as all things are mental, right? The universe is mental, the all is mind, then ultimately, at its core, alchemy is an art of mental transmutation. But you have to want it. You have to want to be able to do that. And in order to be able to want to do that, you have to invest the time necessary to understand what that even means. How profound a concept that actually is. How much responsibility that endows the person who wakes to that concept and realizes, holy crap, I can help people because I can be stronger than I am now. I can do great things because I can be stronger than I am now because I now know what I want to do. To me, there's no greater form of actualization than the actualization of the self in recognition of communal consciousness. wherein you look around yourself and you say, behold, here is yet another expression of the divine mind of the all. Right there. It could be a dog, it could be a person, it could be a tree, it could be a place, it could be a mountainside. And in that way, then, those who carried forth Native American tradition and observed that all things were an expression of the Great Spirit had genuine esoteric roots in deep wisdom. Deep, deep wisdom. Because what is mind, if not spirit? What is the expression of mind but the expression of spirit? And our own language reveals that spirit is the innermost aspect of a thing. That's why we say it's not the letter of the law, it is the spirit of the law, the innermost essence. And so the innermost essence of thought, the innermost essence of everything around us, the core start point of all creation is spirit, which then through the process of its consolidation accretes and slows into the various elements that we see expressed around us today, and including ourselves. That's the connection. But to get to that point where you can see it and feel it and breathe it and know that you never have to calm down. There's never a point where you have to meditate to get a grip, because you're always here. You're always able to see things with a kind of clarity that allows one the ability to transmute each moment to its highest character and to take advantage of every moment, to seek the advantage of all members around you. Because why wouldn't you want another person to succeed if, from your perspective, all boats do in fact rise with the tide? Anyway, so these are some of the realizations that have struck me in the last several weeks as I've contemplated the last teaching cycle, and I wanted to share those with you and with all of you, including any of you who want to be a future student, who want to pursue this material. Because before you begin, you have to ask yourself why you want it. Why do you want it? Just like if you were going into medical school or in law school or in business school, hell, I was very fortunate. I was asked this question, why do you want to be here? And of course, the communal answer, everyone chuckles and goes, oh, business school, to make money. Ha 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 ha. Oh. Oh dear, yeah, those were the days. And then I realized early on I had a moral conscience and a moral compass, and we can talk about that later. But sometimes what you want and what you think you want diverge, and what I wanted was anyway, it doesn't matter. So, you have to ask yourself, why? Why do you want to study this material? What's in it for you? Because ultimately, if you're doing this for someone else, or maybe to understand someone else, or understand something else, and that the core motive is not internally driven, this material is literally designed to expel you, and you will want to stop learning. I have literally had students tell me, no more, you're not allowed to tell me this anymore because it's too much. And of course it's like losing a limb, right, as a teacher who relies on multiple fields, right, multiple disciplines, and drawing an interdisciplinary approach. And so then I'm told, nope, you cannot use insert blank. And then, of course, you deal with that until you recognize that what is happening is an actual demonstration of what the student really wants, which is to not study this at all anymore. And it's because it can be painful. I have had people approach me and say I have to stop because I want to not do my work anymore. I don't want to be in this kind of job anymore. I can't do that. Especially when we work together and I'm learning this, and I feel bad. And I'm like, well, I'm thinking in my head, yes, you're awakening to a sense of consciousness. And my next question to everyone who is espousing that they have encountered or experienced a genuine change in consciousness: how are you different today than you were yesterday? What are you doing differently? The one thing that I will forever give and applaud any fundamentalist faith is this: that to be that you are absorbed by that on one day you acted one way, and on the next day the whole universe changed. Your entire apprehension of everything you see is entirely different and driven by different mechanisms, and you are on board with all that, and now you are that. And that becomes the new you. So if you claim to have a change of consciousness, I would challenge you to ask yourself, how are you different? Because it may feel different, but the difference may not be there. Like, there's this classic Jim Carrey quote I saw years ago on YouTube, and he's talking about the fact that he had achieved this conscious state that was just awesome, and how much he regretted that he couldn't retain that. And I'm like, that's because there's a difference. It's like this flash in the pan, as my friend Tony Azario used to say. He'd look at some folks and he'd praise them before we'd hire them. And I'd always bring Tony and I'd say, Tony, what do you think? And he'd be like, it's flash in the pan. And he'd peg it every time. He'd see all this energy and fervor, and then the person would be like, they would poop out on you in 2 weeks. Anyone who's run a business knows exactly what I'm talking about. And so, that's also the case within the esoteric, because this kind of work is internal work. This kind of work is mental exercise. I have said this for years, and people, they think I'm kidding. I'm like, you should treat this like a mental martial art. And your number one opponent is you. Because you're the person that you're going to have to deal with the most as you move through this material. What you think, how you look at yourself and the universe around you, how you respond to that, how you choose to respond, taking the time to even just remain alert and present, because it takes time to remain alert and present, and it takes a high degree of personal responsibility to own the fact that the life you are experiencing right now is to a very high degree exactly what you want. And if it's not, it's what I tell myself. If this is not what I want, then what is preventing me from changing? And of course, the number one thing preventing is me preventing me from changing. Self-doubt. And a clear lack of understanding of what it is that I really wanted in the first place. Usually, folks, when you put the brakes on, it's because you realize you want something more than this, and we're all conscious of how finite our time is. And that conscious awareness of the passage of our time during periods when we are forced or applying ourselves to do something that we don't want to do is profound. Because when we are doing something we want to do, we have no sense of time. Which is why time flies when you have fun. All right. So that's it, folks. That's the message for today. That's the concept corner for today. We're talking about actually wanting it. Wanting to study this material. Wanting it to be a component of how you express your conscious self. If you can study this for years with the thought that you might need to learn this at some point. But that's not really how this material works. And typically, This material works when it is approached from a desire to absorb it in its entirety, to make it part of you. And by so doing, facilitate you with all of the power, the nuance, the perception, and the inner calm that can come from having an objective mindset running in parallel, fully awake with your subjective self, and the middle self enjoying the détente that is taking place within your mind. All right, I'm Aubrey Forrest, the Modern Alchemist. This has been another Concept Corner on the Modern Alchemist podcast, and today we talked about the esoteric. You gotta want it. I'll be talking to you soon.